Well, welcome to this episode of the Change Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Tim McBride, local realtor here. And Change Agent is a podcast where I like to invite local industry leaders, influencers, and agents of change to join me in conversation so that they can share their stories and hopefully inspire others. I'm excited for today's episode because I was inspired by a quote I heard, which is true purpose is always in service of something bigger than yourself. And my guest, Lindsay, kind of lives that out on a daily basis. This lady carries multiple titles, and I've had the privilege over the last year or so to really get to know her and understand the various things she's doing in the community. And there's a lot of inspiration I personally draw from her and the platforms that she's built out. And I think that this community can really learn a lot from as well. So I'm excited to have Lindsay on. She's, like I said, multiple titles, constantly challenging her status quo and her KPIs. So I'd love for her to introduce herself real quick, kind of give us a little backstory on who you are, kind of where you're from, and then we'll kind of dive into all the things that you're doing and kind of better understand who Lindsay is in these roles and where the inspiration comes from. Thanks for coming on today, Lindsay.
You bet. Thanks, Tim, for having me. It's awesome to actually be sitting on this side of the production. Traditionally, I host my own podcast, so it's fun to be the guest every once in a while. A little bit about my background. I'm originally from Michigan, got tired of that cold weather and moved out to sunny Arizona, and I've been here ever since. Started my career in the real estate industry and have since navigated a couple different pathways, got into economic development, and now currently work for a local law firm called Fenimore Craig. Along the way, I found my passion, which I think that's probably one of the coolest things. And the thing that I talk to a lot of individuals about is finding your true passion and your calling in life. I'm a connector. I love to help people and I love to provide professional development and training opportunities. So through that, I launched A-Z Biz Link, which never in a million years did I think it would grow into what it is today, but it's been a really fun and fulfilling adventure. So thanks again for having me.
It's my pleasure. And that's kind of where I really want to focus a lot of the conversation is A-Z Biz Link. I think it's a really neat platform and how where it came from and the relationships that you're building. I like that you said you are a connector because you're 100% accurate. If you haven't met with Lindsay in person, like she will literally, while you're meeting, introduce you to someone, whether it's through text, email, or face to face. Always thinking of others, always thinking to serve, and it's pretty incredible. So, real quick, let's talk a little bit about A-Z BizLink and how it's the inspiration behind it, how it originated, what you've been able to accomplish through it, and what the goals are with it.
Yeah, I've always been a huge proponent of actually listening to the needs of your clients. And so at the time I had been working in economic development, I worked for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, had the wonderful opportunity of representing the region and sharing the big sales pitch about what makes the Greater Phoenix Metro such an awesome place to live, work, and play. And transitioned out of that role. And what I found was that I still had a lot of corporations, business leaders coming to me as that connector, looking for some of those resources that could ultimately help set them up for success. So we had a wide range of conversations and topics, but predominantly we're focused on workforce development. What can you do to attract and retain top talent within your organization? How do you build winning cultures? What are some fun team building ideas and whatnot? So I figured, I could make those email introductions or set up coffee meetings for people, but I decided to pivot and I welcomed everybody to get together. I set up 4 different conversations over the course of 4 different months and said, whoever wants to show up, great. I'll have coffee and donuts there and I'll let you guys take the relationships and conversations wherever you want to. Little did I know that we would have as much participation as we did. And I didn't realize how many businesses were looking for the exact same thing. So we offered that. That started back in 2017. So from September to December, we offered 4 different conversations. And then my phone rang February of 2018. And people were like, so when's your next event? When's the next conversation? So I started handing out surveys because I believe in the concept. Okay, I need the feedback because I need to know how we can grow and adapt this platform. And the best way to do that is through the feedback of the individuals that actually attend. I said, I have absolutely no ego about it. If you guys tell me this thing is terrible, we're over it, we don't want to come anymore, that's totally okay. But it's funny how it went the opposite direction. And so people started giving great feedback, but they were looking for more topics and more introductions. And from there, the platform has grown. We're now offering over 75 events each year to the Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Reno business markets.
That's great. So you've actually expanded this concept from coffee and donuts in 2017 to 3 different markets. Wow, that's impressive. what I love that you shared there is that you took the feedback from the guests. You wanted to hear their voice and understand where there was a need. I think too often we're trying to, you know, bring our audience or our customers or our clients into, our world and trying to make them fit when really it's the opposite. We need to be listening to them and understand where their needs and then fulfill those through the services and resources we have. So as you were bringing these personalities in and having these conversations, what type of individuals were participating in the platform? Like, were you looking at specific industries, specific titles, or was it just open to really anyone, no matter their kind of level of professional experience?
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of the conversations were focused on workforce development, like I had mentioned before, like that culture or team building. So naturally, those individuals that were most interested were those in an HR or executive leadership type role.
Uh,
And then it continued to morph and change. So as we had more leaders coming, then the requests for more leadership development and training topics started to pop up. So self-awareness or I mean, there's like a number of different topics, but a lot of them were like time and energy management, which we all need in the leadership capacity. Those things started to become more those were trends that I was seeing. And so rather than trying to force feed this group into the topics that I personally wanted, I just asked them, what do you want to hear? And I'll identify the trends and we'll create those series. So originally it was known as the workforce series. Then it became workforce and leadership. And then it became workforce, leadership, corporate social responsibility, branding, awesome women in business, and well-being. So we're now covering, several different topics and trends, but I think we can help just about anyone, anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're entry level in your role or if you're a seasoned C-suite executive. And we're also helping entrepreneurs too. So it's been a really, really fun ride.
Wow. And you do such a good job at incorporating this into kind of like your day-to-day responsibilities in business development marketing for Fenmore Craig. Can you share a little bit about how you partnered the two together so that they can both benefit?
Yeah. Well, I think where I'd like to kind of bring it back to is the idea of just becoming the most authentic version of yourself and finding your passion. I had the wonderful opportunity of getting presented this role within Fenimore Craig, but it's because I had identified and figured out who I wanted to be and what I wanted my career to look like. I think early on in my career, and I think this is true for a lot of us, we kind of are expecting either leaders or companies to shape and morph us into what we should be, but oftentimes we don't take control of that on our own. And so with working with my own personal life coach, I really honed in on what did success look like for me and what would I wake up feeling so energized and excited to work on each and every day. So through that, I met some wonderful people. There were always great opportunities that presented themselves, but it was a matter of finding the right roles that aligned with my mission, vision, and values. So when Fenimore Craig came along, like they were the absolute perfect fit, and it was too good of an opportunity to say no to.
I love that you share that. I think because we're constantly searching for our purpose. I think, especially nowadays, the access of information we have, we're always looking for the perfect fit, perfect title, perfect role. And as someone that can relate to kind of the journey, I my issue I had early on was I kept identifying my value based off of my title, and I didn't really realize I was doing it. I was just so inspired by an industry that I felt like I was so drawn to be in. And every time I got a great role, I allowed that title to define who I was. And my sense of purpose in the role quickly started to fade. And I was quick to want to make a change. And sometimes it just takes those experiences, just by putting yourself out there, by trying to really identify what that passion and purpose is. So I think the more people can hear the journey, and not just focus on titles, that's where people hopefully can find inspiration just to step out and take chances,
Yeah.
especially right now in the world we're having to navigate through. If you're not taking the chance to try or to challenge yourself, then you're not going to really be able to experience or be fulfilled in a lot of these types of roles or things that you aspire to be in. So with that, what are some of kind of your battle scars, if you will? What have you learned along the way through maybe a struggle or failure that further elevated you to kind of continue to seek that passion or that purpose?
I
If you
wouldn't
want
really call this a battle scar, but I think like a lesson learned and something that's really come up as like a key theme and advice that I often offer to other individuals, especially since I'm in the marketing and business development space, is to encourage individuals to practice what you preach and to lead by example. So, a lot of times people are in these roles and they're consultants and they're telling other people what they should be doing, but they don't actually do it themselves.
Yeah.
So, especially in a marketing space or as you're building a brand as a leader, as a guest speaker, as a motivator, whatever it is, you need to be putting out that content yourself. Otherwise, nobody else is going to believe it. So, you have to believe yourself and show other people how it's possible in order to move forward with it.
Yeah. It's funny, when I was with Red Bull, their corporate offices, I always wanted to work with the athletes. And I never grew up, I was a big skier, but I didn't grow up an action sport athlete. And as I pursued wanting to work with them, market them, brand them, if I couldn't actually perform, the gifts that they have, then I wouldn't be really qualified to take on their athlete manager role. I found it really fascinating. Like I could understand their sport, but if I couldn't do it, it was almost like they wouldn't be appreciative of who I could be in that role. So it's really entertaining.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays, so many people just want to talk and they don't want to actually show the work or prove that, they can back up their words or their guidance.
And some great advice that I was offered is to put it on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, even if it's something that you're working towards and haven't necessarily mastered. It just gives you something that you can look forward to, like potentially conquering moving forward. Not that you should oversell yourself, but
Yeah.
help other people to identify your areas of expertise. So I always hired guest speakers, and I wasn't necessarily the person that was getting hired as a guest speaker. I was open to it and I was happy to do that. But as soon as I put that on my LinkedIn profile page, all of a sudden people started calling saying, Lindsay, when can you become one of our guest speakers? And I was actually offered an MC role for a local nonprofit because of that. So there's something to be said for, putting that kind of content out there in the world and helping to build your own brand and guide people to believing who you are, who you want to be.
I love it. And speaking of building your own brand, let's talk. You've done these two really neat platforms in the last year or so. One of which is this podcast you've created. I'd love for you to share a little bit about the meaning behind that and kind of the value you gain from it, and kind of where you envision taking that platform, because the conversations you're having on that are pretty exceptional. And then you've also publicized your first book, right? So you have a publication that's come out called Resources for Growth. So where did these ideas come from, and like where is your vision to continue to develop those two areas? Because I think they're a big part of your brand from what I see on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I think both of these were just going with my gut instinct and kind of taking risks and putting myself outside my comfort zone. If you would have asked me a couple years ago if I would ever produce my own podcast, I'd be like, who would want to listen to me? so, so it's kind of funny how things and opportunities present themselves. So I'll just share a little bit about the story as far as the podcast. I had, through the power of connections and networking, I was introduced to Rensler Media. I was offered the opportunity to come on one of their podcasts. So I was a guest. We had a great conversation, was super fun. I didn't know where it would go. And then shortly after that, they were like, well, have you ever thought about hosting a podcast? Because, we have this platform called Why Arizona, and we're just looking to share all the great stories about what makes Arizona so awesome. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. That one hits home for me because I love sharing those stories. I love highlighting local professionals and executives. So I did help them with season 2 of the Why Arizona podcast. And because I presented who I was and my mission and my vision, and also had the A-Z Biz Link platform, building and growing at the same time, we eventually morphed that and created the A-Z Biz Link podcast. So from there, I often interview local leaders that I think could ultimately help set you up for personal and professional success. So those are oftentimes the individuals on the podcast. They're sometimes our guest speakers, sometimes they're just influential leaders from our business community, or those that just have a really good story that could inspire somebody. So my words of advice, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, you absolutely should. Even if you help impact one individual, it makes it worthwhile. And you also asked about the book, which I'm excited you did. Everyone should check it out because this guy, Tim, he's actually in the publication. So maybe he'll give you an autographed copy here at one of an upcoming event or one of your next. Yeah. But yeah, that one, it was still like the idea of the power of connecting people. And I just found that I kept introducing a lot of the same people over and over and over again. I was like, well, what if I took the idea and I made like the idea of like Lindsay's list or like the go-to people that are trusted resources that could ultimately help you. Um, I had a lot of people that put faith in me, that invested in this and said, "We believe in you, and hopefully this book thing works out." But we were so excited to launch that this year. So we feature over 100 different individuals in 13 different categories. So it's a little bit more digestible and easier to understand like how these individuals can help you, ranging from, it could be those that help you with your workforce or company culture. Real estate was in there. Anything from like A to Z when it comes to business related services, they're in there.
I love it. So, and it is a great resource. So, what would be some ways for people to connect with it right now, or pick up a? Can they get a tangible copy yet, or is it
Um,
digital?
you can request a copy. We can send you one. The idea was that we would have them at all the major events in the Phoenix Metro in 2020, but considering every event seems to be canceled right now, you probably won't find them there. But we have a digital copy. You're welcome to go ahead and review that. And so that's A to Z bizlink.com /resources. And yeah, you can go ahead and look at it there or request a copy.
So, you just kind of touched on, the world we're living in right now. Obviously, things have changed dramatically for how we operate. How has this been for you? Obviously, you manage a lot of different moving pieces on a daily basis. How have you kind of managed your day to day? Like, what kind of lessons have you learned either about yourself or your businesses that you may not have known prior to COVID shutting us down back at the end of March?
Yeah, I think there's traditionally two types of individuals. Those that, when obstacles or roadblocks present themselves, they kind of shut down and just try and wait it out. Or those that take a proactive approach and figure out, well, no matter what, I'm going to make this thing happen. And so I tend to be more so on that frame of mind and that thought process. And so COVID-19 hit. I think no one saw this one coming and no one was prepared for what lied what lied ahead. But we I think for me, it was one, it made me so appreciative of investing in my network and my contacts and relationships that I had established throughout my career because I was able to leverage some of those and call in some favors over the last couple of months. It also helped me to think through where was I really spending my time and my energy over the last couple of months, and I realized I was probably spending a lot of time and energy on things that really weren't as impactful as what I thought they were at that point in time. So it was a good wake up moment for me. And then certainly how we're doing business. I mean, that's dramatically changed. I'm no longer getting together. Before I had a million coffee meetings on my calendar and was living off of, I probably had six cups of coffee a day. So I realized, 2 months into quarantine, I stopped and I got a Starbucks coffee one morning and I was laughing because I literally had the shakes from one cup of coffee. So I was like, obviously I'm not in my regular routine anymore.
It's
Uh,
good.
but yeah, as far as, changing things up with business, we're looking for different ways to get in front of people and to have real authentic conversations. Sending emails just is like that's not the same as connecting with somebody face to face. So video content is now more important than ever.
Yeah.
My light went out in my office if you're wondering why it got dark.
Yeah.
It's all censored. And so yeah, video content has become really important. And then also just finding ways to authentically connect with people. And one of the benefits of like doing all these Zoom calls has been you can get an inside glimpse of who these people are on a personal basis. So it's actually been kind of nice and fun to see.
Oh, awesome. I love your approach to it. And yeah, just your mentality, because you got to stay positive, right? You got to continue to just persevere and find opportunities and adjust, because this isn't going away. I think it was pretty clear pretty quick. Like, you can't just resort to staying inside and waiting it out. This is the new reality we're going to have to navigate for a while, and a lot of the practices that we're trying to implement to get through it are going to be the norm coming out of it. So the expectations the marketplace will have of us will be what we're trying to learn right now. So it's a very valuable time just to go inside and better ourselves in a lot of ways. So where is Lindsay going? 2021, 22. Where is she expanding her empire to? Because you're doing a lot. You expanded A-Z Biz Link to two other cities. Like, where do you see yourself going? What do you see yourself kind of really investing a lot of energy into in these next, say 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. Well, I'm always looking to just strengthen my own skills. So, looking to figure out new technologies or platforms. I always think that's really cool and exciting. I will really lean in hard when it comes to video content creation. I probably will stop putting out as much like static, graphics. I'd rather, further communicate and, share the most authentic version of myself. And I'm aspiring to produce more of that educational content myself. I think I've helped a lot of individuals to spotlight them, and I love and I will always continue to do that. But I think now, as I enter this next chapter, I'll probably be releasing some of my own.
I love it. Good for you. Well, I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, and appreciate the ability to learn from all the different platforms you've created. And I know you're a podcast host, so it's been fun to have you on my podcast. And we've been trying to make this happen for a while, and I'm just grateful that your schedule is flexible and you're able to work with some of the life circumstances that presented itself in my world. But if I believe in the world, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And I think a lot of this city needs to know who Lindsay is, because you are doing some really cool things, and you really you really position yourself to be of service, and you genuinely do it with the intention to help. And I think that is so powerful, especially right now. And hopefully more people through a podcast like this can connect with you. So with that, what are some of the best ways that people can reach out if they heard anything today that can inspire them, or give them questions that they can contact you and just get to know you more, and have you be a resource for them?
I appreciate that. So my website's azbizlink.com. That's always a great place, and all my contact information is on there, as well as all of our social platforms. If you want to watch some of my podcasts or some of our events or some of those featured things, we're on YouTube, which is kind of nice to see some of that in action.
Yep.
But as far as other social platforms, LinkedIn is my number one. That's what I'm always on from a business perspective. And then traditionally Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but Instagram I tend to use a little bit more.
Okay, I love it. Well, people, please, we'll put all the links to all your handles in the notes below. But it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. I know you're busy. Like I said, you're doing a ton. So for you to schedule the time, we're grateful for it. And is there any last kind of parting words you want to share, whether it be about kind of the different platforms you build out, or just a message to the audience today?
Yeah. Well, I want to say kudos to you for all of your efforts. I think you've done a phenomenal job as far as building your brand, especially as it relates to corporate social responsibility and getting involved with local nonprofits. So, for those individuals that are looking to get more involved through nonprofits, I think you are a tremendous resource for them. So, I love to acknowledge and recognize those resources out there. So, thank you for all your work that you do in that space. But no, I'm just appreciative if I can ever be of service or a resource. Check out our resource guide, or feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. And we share a studio at Renthler Media, but obviously we're not there right now. And in passing a while back, I gave you a hat, but you are well deserving, obviously, of a change agent, new era, snapback. Just recognizing you for kind of who you are in our community and the work you do every day. So wear it proudly if you choose.
I
Maybe
will,
you
absolutely.
won't be hurt if you don't. I'm a big collector, so that's why. But I really appreciate you taking the time today. And people, take a time to look up Lindsay, pay attention to what she's doing, and she is always available to answer questions. She'll make herself available. So hopefully that you guys, there's some lessons learned today. And Lindsay, I'll continue to follow and be a supporter, and look forward to seeing you soon in person, over a fresh cup of coffee, because I'm missing those face to faces. It's just not the same.
Same here. All right. Thanks again, Tim.
Take care. We'll talk soon.